Hi everyone, hello, good to see you all. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning for Pathways to Stability. My name is Meredith Easter. I'm the Disabilities Coordinator for the Office of Disability Services, and I'm excited to be hosting this event with Heather Clapper from the Department of Housing and Community Services. I'm going to turn it over to our presenters because they have a lot of information to share with you today. Please be advised that we're going to have a Q&A later on in the event, so go ahead and save your questions until that time. But first up, we're going to welcome Deborah Temple. She's going to be talking about Ticket to Work. She's the Ticket to Work Relations Manager of the Maryland Employment Network. Thanks, Deborah.
Thank you, Meredith. Hi, how is everybody today? Pretty good? I like interaction. I know they're like, no, not interaction. We're trying to tape this. Let me just ask, if you don't mind, if you're comfortable with it, how many of you have a loved one or receiving a disability? Just that this is like super relevant to you in particular. Okay. All right, that gives me a little bit of an idea. All right, so the Ticket to Work is a Social Security program. And so if you are receiving Social Security, you may find that this is useful for you. So my name's Deborah Temple, and I am, as she said, the Ticket to Work Relations Manager. This is my contact information. I have cards with me, and it'll be on the last slide as well. So please call me Deb. All right, so today we're going to talk about it being a Social Security program. We're going to talk about the program in as much as it is multi-pronged approach. We have a great partnership between Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment Network, and you'll see these lovely ladies over here. So helping you to reach your goals. And then finally, the ultimate goal is to reach independence and financial self-sufficiency. So coming directly off of that, the goal is to assist people receiving Social Security disability benefits in reducing their reliance on reducing their reliance on disability benefits. The Ticket program also seeks to promote increased self-sufficiency and greater independence for people receiving Social Security disability benefits through work. So that is directly off of there, off of Social Security's website. So I wanted to make sure that I give you that up front. So we are looking at reducing the reliance on disability benefits. And ideally, working until you make enough money that you don't need the benefits. There we go. So who's eligible? People are eligible if they are receiving SSI, SSDI, maybe child disability benefits, anything that's going to be covered under a Social Security disability. They're going to be 18 through 64 years old. So if someone wants to assign a ticket, they're going to need to be under 65, although they can continue to get supports through 67, merely because the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing sometimes, and 67 is the new retirement age, but it was 65 when this was developed. So these are folks that are going to be, like I said, 18 to 64, SSI, SSDI beneficiaries. And the key here is people who are ready and able to work. So Social Security tracks the way a person's success in the Ticket to Work program through the timely progress. So meeting timely progress is going to be, they're going to have certain, we're going to talk about these in a minute, certain benchmarks that they want to see people meeting in order to stay in the program. They must achieve at least one of the requirements listed for their particular review period, and they're done on a 12-month basis. That 12 months could be any multitude of things. It could be, they could come annually. Sometimes they're going to come less often. So in the first one, this is just the earnings benchmark. There's also a college benchmark. So in this first one, they're looking for you to be at or above the trial work level, which means earning $1,100 $20. I think it's, oh, yeah, they just changed it for January 1st. So for 2026, it's going to be $1,120 a month before taxes and any other deductions. The second year, they're looking for you to be 6 months at or above that level. The third year, they're looking for you to be 9 months above substantial gainful activity. And that's where we're going to hit that $1,690 per month. When you get to the fifth year and subsequent years, they're looking at 6 months at or above receiving a benefit. And the difference in that is when someone is getting SSDI, they're going to have work phases. And so at that substantial gainful activity, they are no longer going to be receiving a benefit after they have completed the trial work period and their cessation. And we'll talk more about that as well. For SSI, not receiving a check is going to vary based on whether a person is getting a full benefit rate or if they're getting a reduced benefit rate. For a full benefit rate, that number is going to be well over $2,000. It's like $2,078, I think. So understanding the ticket to work, backing it up for just a little bit, I just wanted to kind of give you an overview so you have an idea of what the program looks like. It's a multi-pronged approach. So there are 4 pieces to the Ticket to Work program. There is the vocational rehabilitation, which in our state is DOORS. There are employment networks. There is the Work Incentive Planning and Assistance, known as WIPA. That program, and then finally there is the Protection and Advocacy for Beneficiaries of Social Security, known as PABS. You can find information about these specific pieces of the Ticket to Work online and on the phone at the choosework.ssa.gov. There we go. choosework.ssa.gov or 1-866-YOUR-TICKET. Okay, so let's talk about, when we talk about vocational rehabilitation, you're looking at training and skills development, career counseling and vocational guidance, job search assistance, resume help, job development and job placement, developing reasonable accommodations and referrals to additional services. Am I missing anything, ladies? No? Benefits counseling, maybe. Okay. Which is funny because I do benefits counseling. It was just a given for me. You need to understand, one thing that you need to know about VR is that it is reserved for consumers needing high intensity services. So not everyone is going to get vocational rehabilitation services, simply because there's only, so many pieces of a pie. You can only cut it up so many ways. So that's going to include people that are not eligible for Ticket to Work due to age or benefit status. So it's going to be both Ticket to Work people and non-Ticket to Work people. So you're going to see a lot, I'm going to close this office just a little bit. You're going to see a lot of duplicate, especially on this first section on the Ticket to Work comparison between vocational rehabilitation and employment network. So the employment networks are going to do career counseling and vocational guidance. They're going to do the they're going to do the job search assistance, the resume help, the job development and job placement, reasonable accommodations and additional services. What you're not going to see on an employment network side is going to be that training. So vocational rehabilitation can offer training and employment networks cannot. We can help you find free training. We can recommend you go back, if you're eligible, to go to DOORS to get that training and then come back to us. But we cannot offer that right out, DOORS has some really great training programs. They have the WTC, Workforce Technology Center, and I can't say enough nice things about it. It's a terrific opportunity for people who need that. In addition, with an employment network, you're looking at job retention, coaching, and ongoing employment supports, job growth and promotion assistance, reasonable accommodation. You're looking at ongoing benefits counseling, protection from medical continuing disability reviews, and Social Security assistance. You are getting protection if your ticket is assigned to VR as well. The work incentive plannings and assistance is benefits counseling. It is a program that it's really, it's kind of a one-trick pony. You make the appointment, you go in, you get the benefits counseling. It's not ongoing support. So for us, you're getting that benefits counseling as an employment network, you're getting that benefits counseling ongoing. If you're with Doors, they have phases of benefits counseling. So the whole time you're with Doors, you have a benefits counselor who's working with you. This is going to be more of a situation where you're ready to work, you have a job offer, and you need benefits counseling, but you're not otherwise, don't have your ticket assigned. The WIPA program, that work incentives planning and assistance, is where you're going to go. And then you have the protection and advocacy for beneficiary of Social Security, the PABs. That's going to be legal advocacy. That's going to be, you feel like you are not getting accommodations that you're entitled to. You're not getting, the building doesn't have the proper ADA requirements, and you want to take it to a legal place. All right. I think I'm supposed to push the button. So VR and employment networks are really closely tied. This is something that Social Security puts out, and I wanted to include it merely because I think it shows if a person qualifies for the vocational rehabilitation, and then after they're working and stabilized, they want to move to an employment network, this is how it looks. So first you need to understand that each state is required to have a vocational rehabilitation service. And in Maryland, as I said, that is Doors. There is one. When you talk about that WIPA program we were just discussing, there is one. When you talk about PABs, we're talking about one. You talk about employment networks, you have a plethora of choices. So that's a lot of difference in those, is one, who VR can accept, and that there is one. And then we had already talked a little bit about, so they're going to help you explore employment options, prepare for workforce, and to find a job. You're going to stay with them until you reach what they call stability, which is going to be 90 or 135 days if they're with, for supported employment. Yeah. So, but basically, mostly it's going to be for 90 days, and you're going to be in that job, you're going to be succeeding in that job, and then they're going to close the case. You're going to have benefits counseling the whole time. Am I missing anything, ladies? No? Doing okay? Okay. So if you go that route, you then would, if you're working at or above SGA, the trial work level, you are then going to be eligible for an employment network. And I say eligible, I'm going to say you're a good ticket candidate for that, because that's the benchmark from Social Security. And then you're going to continue to get that benefits counseling, you're going to continue the job accommodations, job coaching, job retention services. And again, if you are not eligible for VR, you are not out in the cold, because you can assign your ticket to an employment network who will, in fact, do those services, but with less intensity. That's the key about the key difference between vocational rehabilitation and employment networks is the intensity of services. All right, so let's talk about the real game for a minute, and that is, while Social Security lays out a very linear plan, real life is full of twists and turns. It never looks like it does on that last graph that they did, in the last graphic. Ticket handoffs from vocational rehabilitation to employment networks provide an easy and fluid path for qualified clients who need additional education, training, and more intensive services. Those sometimes look like an Oreo cookie. We take someone in, they need those extra intensive services, they apply for doors, we work with them, if and when doors can accept them, they then get those intensive services, and then we would take the ticket back when they close it. So after they get those services, we are happy to be the cookie on the other end. So I always like that Oreo cookie. You're like the cream in the middle. It's the part everybody likes anyway. I'm going to tell you right now, if you have a child indoors, no one wants to leave doors. They don't. Parents are frightened for what is ahead for their child. And the key here is that they have to be prepared. And with working with the two organizations together is how we get there. I get it. Nobody wants to leave because it's the first time you've been heard. You've been in school and you've sat in an IEP meeting and yeah, they hear you, but this is the first time somebody sitting at a desk looking at you saying, I get it. Your child needs help. Your child is important and your child can work. We just need to find the right answer. And we have the intensity of services to be able to get your child there. I wouldn't want to leave either. But it is time limited, and the more success, and the quicker we have success, the better off your child is. I'm pretty much talking more about parents. Certainly it's true for everyone if it's your own disability, but my mom heart feels it. And I know that for those of you with adult children, you feel it too. And I'm watching like a little teary-eyed over here. They also feel it. The advantage for consumers with doing a handoff from doors to an employment network under the Ticket to Work is a continuity of services. It's continued protection from those medical continuing disability reviews. Everyone's going to have work reviews. Can't stop those. But the medical we can halt. Retention services for competitive employment. Assistance in moving into higher pay and increased hours on the job. So whether that's higher pay, like earning more per hour, or whether that is working more hours. The ongoing benefits counseling, all of those things we talked about before is what they're receiving from an employment network that's going to continue for them. So let's talk about employment networks for a minute because this is where you have choices. That's going to be, there are statewide employment networks. That's what we are at the Maryland Employment Network. We only work with individuals from the state of Maryland. We feel like we can offer the most assistance because we know our state. That does not mean that a multi-state or a national does not offer good services. It does mean that you need to look at your employment networks and choose what works for you and your family. Because they're all different. We're all a little different. We're not cookie cutter. We have a minimum standard to reach, and then what an employment network does beyond that is up to that employment network. So you want to be careful, and you want to know that you're not necessarily getting the same thing from everybody. And then you have employer, just throwing this out here. And that would be somebody that only hires individuals with disabilities, or maybe hires individuals with disabilities as a large portion of their workforce. Somebody like, I'm trying to think around here, Pride, what did you have? Chimes. If you're familiar with those types of organizations, they hire, they work those employees, and therefore they can claim them as, for their tickets. Assuming Social Security, they've gone through all the other stuff. They don't just get to do it. Whoops. So in choosing it, you want to really look at what it is. You want to look at their job development and career counseling, their benefits counseling, the supports and reasonable accommodations that they're aware of. You want to know their education of the counselors and their certifications. There are multiple certifications available. You want to know, are they familiar with similar disabilities? And what is their career placement in good paying jobs look like? Do they have people going to work, or do they just have a whole list of people and none of them are working? So you want to be really careful that this makes sense. If you're looking for, if you are visually impaired and you're looking at an employment network that has no experience with visually impaired folks, maybe you want to look somewhere that does. It's just, finding the right fit for you. I want to say, naturally, we're the right fit for everyone, but that's not true. And I would not want to tell you it is. So financial self-sufficiency, as we talked about, is the ultimate goal of the Ticket to Work program. We want to help people reach that level of independence. One of the biggest questions we get, why would somebody want to work? They worked so hard to get disability. What would be the point? I'm watching somebody shake their head over here. You've heard that before, huh? Everybody has their own reason. Some people want to work because they want to contribute to society. They want to use an education they've already established or an education they are establishing. Self-accomplishment. Sometimes people just want to meet people because it gets real easy to isolate when you have a disability. It gets real easy to isolate regardless. But it's especially easy for individuals with disabilities, especially if their mobility is affected. Mental health disabilities affect that. So many things. I hear that people want to be a good role model. We all want to be a good role model for our children, for our nieces and our nephews. We want to be able to do that and show them they can do things. I've had people that went back to work to pay for a special event. They said, I'm only going to work this far because I don't want to lose my benefit necessarily, which is not the point of Ticket to Work. But I had someone approach me that they were paying for a wedding. You can do that. Doesn't make you a good Ticket to Work candidate unless you may continue working. But it is an allowable thing under Social Security. Emotional well-being, affording vacations, living a healthy life. Somebody tell me, I need an ongoing job because I want to get a puppy. I can't afford a puppy. I can't afford my bills and a puppy. And if any of you know, puppies are expensive. And they're expensive for about 15 years. So these are the kind of things, but the most important thing we hear is, I want to earn a livable wage. If you're receiving SSI, you're living at about 2/3 of the federal poverty level. That's a maximum benefit on SSI. In 2026, that's $994. Maximum benefit. You may be getting less. If you're receiving SSDI, you are just under the poverty level on average. SSDI is going to be different. There are some people that had really good paying jobs and they're getting $3,000 or more a month. But that is the exception and not the rule. Just quick numbers. It is roughly for every $100 you were earning, you'll receive $40. So if you were earning $100,000, you're looking at now living on $40,000. If you were earning $50,000, as most Americans are kind of somewhere in there, you are going to be receiving $20,000. I can't pay my mortgage, and I could not have raised my family with a 60% cut. So a lot of times people think that you're going to go onto Social Security and you're going to get the amount you were earning. But I was a big earner. You're going to get more. You're going to get more than most people, but you're not going to get the same. It is super important. I cannot say this enough. Benefits counseling is vital. To start work without benefits counseling is a dangerous, slippery slope. You need to know how earnings will affect your cash benefits, what work incentives may be useful for you, because work incentives can be used to reduce your income. You have safety nets available, things that people don't know. If you're getting, if you work and your benefits are terminated, you have an extended period, you have an expedited reinstatement period for 5 years from whenever they terminate. Those are big safety nets. Medical benefits, a lot of times people say, oh, but if I work off of my benefit, my medical's going to end. Nope, that's not how that happens. So it's important to have benefits counseling to know what that looks like. And if you're in a job and you're in there for many years and you are working, yes, you could be at a place where you're going to transition to something like Medicaid or to your company benefits if you're on Medicare, but you're still going to have benefits available for you. And transitioning to Medicaid would be under the Employed Individuals with Disabilities. So there are lots of options. Losing medical should not be anyone's first concern. All right, so we're kind of wrapping up here. I just wanted to give you a little bit of information. I'm not going to get too much into benefits, merely because benefits change. We get updates from Social Security every week. And there's always little nuances. But I can give you some really basics. If you're receiving SSI and you start to work, it is mathematically impossible to make less money by working than it is less money working than getting your check. Mathematically, the numbers, what do the kids say? The math doesn't math that way. So earning is reduced. There is a certain amount that is discarded, or disregarded, I guess I should say. And then it's reduced at a rate of $1 per $2 earned. You will always have more money by working. Just will. Then again, those safety nets are in place for you. And nobody goes to work, and this is my first job, and I worked over, and now I didn't get my check this month, and I'm cut off. Doesn't work like that. There is systems in place. That's what you want to do. Absolutely, get the benefits counseling. Whether we're offering it, you go to WIPA, whether Doors is offering it, the worst thing you can do if you want to go to work is to refuse the benefits counseling that's offered to you. It is vital. And if this person's receiving SSDI, I don't know how many folks here are SSDI versus SSI. SSDI is going to have work incentive phases. Those phases are going to be your trial work period, where you can work for 9 months regardless of your earnings, and still receive your full benefit check. You're going to go into your extended period of eligibility, and for the first month you work over that SGA, you still get your check, and for the next 2 months. So you have 9 and 3, you have 12 months where regardless of your earnings, you're still going to get your benefit, your full benefit. 12 months is a lot of time to figure out what this looks like for you. If you go into that extended period of eligibility, you then have 36 months while you decide whether this works for you. Because if it doesn't, turn your check back on. So there are lots of safety nets. Again, you still have the 5 years of that expedited reinstatement that we talked about. So I don't want anyone to be afraid of work. Just know your information. Use your resources. Use the things that are offered to you. Take the advice of professionals so that you're making informed decisions. Okay? There are no right and wrong decisions. They are the decisions that work for you and for your family. But make sure you know your information first. I think. Oh. So we talked about this in the beginning. I'm just going to go back over. The person who is going to be a good Ticket to Work candidate, especially for an EN, is they're qualified for Ticket to Work. They want to work over SGA eventually, not today. Not necessarily tomorrow, not next month, over time. Their goal is to build up to that. Of course, if you want to work over right away, who am I to stop you? And then, understand those Ticket to Work plan goals that we've discussed in the beginning. Keep in mind, working over SGA and working full-time or part-time do not figure in. A lot of times people will say, they told me I can work 20 hours a week. Maybe. But if you make $20 an hour, you're going to be over SGA. If I look here, the minimum wage in Maryland is $15 an hour. At 26.1 hours, you are over SGA. So don't get caught up in, but I'm working part-time. I only work 28 hours a week. We hear it all the time. The average Maryland wage is $19 an hour this year. At 20.6 hours, you're over SGA. That is a 20-hour-a-week job and a boss that says, hey, can you hang out for another 30 minutes? We got to get this done. One time a week. You're over, a little over 30 minutes. That would be 0.5. But you need to look at that and know that not to use that part-time, full-time, because that's what we all want to say. I'm not going to work full-time. I'm just going to work part-time. It won't matter for me. It's not relevant. And it is. Okay? So we all work together. The 4 pieces of the Ticket to Work program. Most closely, though, are VR and employment networks. Not that we don't like the others, but we don't see them very much. And together, everyone achieves more. Do we have any questions? We're going to wait?
Yeah, we're going to wait and do questions.
No problem. This is where you can find me if you would like to talk. If I'm not the person to help you, I will guide you to the right people. I'm not very good at saying, I'm sorry, you don't fit into our program. Have a nice day. I'm really good at saying, this doesn't work, but I know what will work. Give me a minute, let me work this out, let me talk to some people, let me find an answer for you. And we're done. Thank you all. You've been an excellent audience. I appreciate your time.
Our next presenter is going to be Kelly Nelson from Maryland Able. She's the Outreach and Communications Manager, and that's what's on.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here today, and I always like to share that in addition to working for Maryland Able as the Outreach and Communications Manager for the program over the last 7 years, I'm also a parent of a, next week, 22-year-old young lady, and she has had an ABLE account since she's been about 14. So I've also got some practical life experience with how ABLE accounts can help navigate those benefits as we follow her from the school system into adult services. So I'm happy to be here today, and I'm so glad that I got to follow Deb, because we kind of really, our presentations really commingle really well, because as we talk about adult services and working, we'll see how ABLE accounts can play into that. So just to help me gauge kind of where everybody is here, how many of you are familiar with ABLE accounts? Okay, all right. All right, all righty then. So ABLE accounts are basically a way for a person with a disability to be able to save money and still maintain those critical means-tested benefits, things such as SSI, Medicaid, and all those different types of waivers that a person could qualify for. Could be food, energy, or housing assistance. It could be community pathways waivers. It could be all kinds of stuff that fall under those Medicaid waivers. And I'm sure that Deb talked about in her presentation, for those who are receiving SSI benefits, there is that $2,000 asset limit that folks have to stay within that $2,000 limit. If they are to go over that amount, a combination of all their accounts, all their assets, if they come over $2,000, they're considered over-resourced by Social Security, right? So we're probably all kind of familiar with that. So that has been the problem for decades for folks that were receiving SSI benefits. Sure, it was great that they had that monthly amount coming in to help support their living cost and whatnot. They qualified for Medicaid and sometimes qualified for other waivers. But anyone that's ever gone over, has anybody ever gone over the $2,000 limit? Know what happens. So you all are aware of that. So if for some reason someone exceeds that $2,000 limit, what will happen is Social Security will notify that you have become over-resourced and you have a specific amount of time to spend that money down below $2,000. And if you don't do it within that time frame, whatever they've designated as their time frame, people will become disenrolled from Social Security. And you'd have to start the process all over again. So anyone that has been receiving SSI or been through the process of applying for it, we know it can take anywhere between 9 months to a year and a half, I think is what they're saying right now for that approval process. My daughter was super lucky. She was on the 2-year plan. So I don't know how we got so lucky to have to wait 2 years, but finally they got it together, and you know, they were able to, I see somebody else with more than that. So yeah, we do hear about that. Anyway, this is where ABLE comes in to be really, really helpful with anyone receiving these kind of benefits, because thanks to federal legislation called the Achieving a Better Life Experience Act, that's the acronym for ABLE, it made it possible for states across the country to open ABLE programs and offer ABLE accounts to people so that they could save up to $100,000 in their ABLE account, and it is not a countable resource by Social Security and Medicaid. Okay, so that's what really made that possible. Outside of ABLE, a person can have up to $2,000. Within an ABLE account, they can have up to $100,000 and still maintain their benefits. I do just like to share with everyone that ABLE legislation is national, it's federal legislation. Our regulations are housed within the Internal Revenue Code, so this is not just a Maryland thing. There's 47 ABLE programs nationwide, and Maryland is just one of them. So let's take a look at who qualifies for an ABLE account. Basically, you got to meet 2 criteria. Number 1, the person had to have the onset of their disability prior to their 46th birthday. So anyone that's familiar with ABLE, you're like, hey, that's a change up right there, and it is. Effective January 1st of this year, eligibility was increased to those who had a qualifying disability by age 46. It used to be 26. So this is helping a lot of adults who have a later onset, maybe traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injuries, veterans, so a lot of other people are now eligible. The second criteria is that you have to have a disability that is, you know, qualifies for Social Security, or that Social Security Administration recognizes as a qualifying disability. So in the enrollment process, it usually asks the person, can you let us know, are you currently receiving SSI, or SSDI, and if you check either one of those boxes, then we already know that you have a qualifying disability because Social Security has examined your documentation and found that you have that disability. Or the third option is you can self-attest and say, yes, I've had a disability that started before age 46, and then you can provide a disability certification form, which is available on our website. You just take that to your physician. And some people say, well, why would this be? Well, think about it. Some people that are in the process, I know this gentleman was talking about waiting 3 years to have to hear an answer back about his benefits. Sometimes you already know you have this disability, but you may not be currently receiving SSI or SSDI. You can provide that physician's certification form. So that's a little bit about eligibility. Okay, so it's important to note that the ABLE account is always owned by the person with a disability. They're both the owner and the beneficiary of the account. We do know that for some adults that have disabilities, they need help managing the ABLE account. And that's fine. We have what we call in the ABLE world, the authorized legal representative. That's basically just the person that can help open that account and manage it on their behalf, okay? So if you're opening an ABLE account for a child, obviously they're under the age of 18. Somebody has to help serve in that capacity. It's usually a parent or a guardian. But if you have a person who's over the age of 18, if they have the ability to manage their own account, that's great. Or they can appoint someone to help serve in that capacity. Some people say, well, what if I have an adult child who cannot give consent, who can't appoint someone, who can't give power of attorney? Well, that's okay. You can either serve because you have guardianship, or you can have guardianship, conservatorship, have power of attorney. You could be a spouse, a parent, a sibling, a grandparent, or someone that is serving as representative payee for Social Security benefits. So those folks can go ahead and step in and help them manage that account. Let's look at some of the main reasons why people really benefit from having an ABLE account. The first one we've already talked about, and that's being able to increase those savings benefits before SSI cash benefits are impacted. Inside of an ABLE account, you can have up to $100,000. Outside of ABLE, you may have up to $2,000. It's not only going to protect those SSI cash benefits, but it's also going to protect Medicaid. So I don't know if anyone's had this experience, but we've had folks that had SSI and Medicaid. Their account balance went over $2,000, and before they even were notified by Social Security that they had been over-resourced, Medicaid is aware of it, and they lost their benefits, their health care benefits. They go to the doctors on Monday, told to come back on a Friday for a follow-up, and all of a sudden their Medicaid insurance is not available to them, and they say, well, this can't be right. As it turns out, they were over-resourced by over $2,000 and lost those benefits. So again, ABLE helps really maintain those critical benefits like the health insurance and other waivers. Another benefit is that a person does not pay any taxes on the earnings in their ABLE account. They don't pay federal or state taxes on their earnings, not while the money is in the ABLE account, and not when they take it out either, as long as they're taking it out to be used on the person with the disability, the account owner, the beneficiary, for anything that's going to support them in their health, their independence, or their quality of life. Another benefit is access to a Maryland state income subtraction for contributions made to an ABLE account. So as Deb was talking about folks that were talking about working and having a job, if somebody has an ABLE account, they can contribute to their own ABLE account and take those contributions as an income subtraction on their Maryland state taxes. So that's less taxable earnings for them. Doesn't have to be just for the account owner either. It could be for family or friends. So anyone making a contribution to an ABLE account can take that income subtraction if they pay Maryland taxes. The other benefit is that ABLE accounts are really easy to enroll in. These are intended to be enrolled in online and managed online. So unlike a lot of the other very lengthy and complex applications, those DDA applications, those Social Security applications that take a really long time, and then you have to wait and wait to find out if it's been accepted or you've been approved. It takes about 15 or 20 minutes to enroll for your ABLE account online. And then once you do so, it's easy access to funds because you're going to link your ABLE account with an existing bank account. You can make contributions anytime. You can take withdrawals whenever you need it. And speaking of withdrawals, let's take a look at what are the types of things that you can use the ABLE funds for. Well, in our regulations, it states that a qualified disability expense is anything, any service, any item that is going to support the beneficiary in his or her health, independence, and quality of life. So that's a very broad definition, and they've intentionally made it that way so that people can really use the funds for whatever they need to in order to achieve that better life experience. But they did give us some categories. These are not intended to be all-inclusive. These are just some ideas, okay? Let's take a look at health, prevention, and wellness. And the reason I like to bring this one up as an example is a lot of you are probably thinking, okay, well that's probably like doctor co-pays or maybe my prescriptions or something. But think about wellness. Wellness is way more than medical bills. It could be a gym membership, therapeutic horseback riding, yoga classes. Kind of see where I'm going with this? This really supports the person's overall wellness. Housing. So in the future, if the account owner is able to move out and maybe get a roommate with someone, they can use their ABLE account to pay rent. Homeowners insurance, use the funds to furnish their apartment or whatever they need. Education, any type of education. It doesn't have to be college. It could be trade schools. It could be more informal education, non-credit classes at the community college. Transportation. So if someone needs to use an Uber to get to work, and I think that's one of those things that qualifies as we're shaking her head yes. So if you need to do that, you can use your ABLE funds to pay for Ubers, Lyfts, taxis. You can use it for bus fare, airfare, all kinds of stuff. Basic living expenses is going to be things like food and clothing and utilities. Assistive technology could be computers or screen readers, hearing aid devices, but it also includes your cell phone and your monthly cell phone expense. Okay? And we kind of go on all the way to the very end, which is not the funnest part to talk about, but if someone passes away, they can use the funds in their ABLE account to pay for burial and funeral expenses. All right. Lots of ways. I'm actually going to give you the two things that I've heard that the IRS says is not a QDE. Gambling, because this is tax-free savings. They don't qualify gambling as a qualified expense, and gifts for other people, because the money in this ABLE account is a tax-free earning account just for the person with the disability. So they don't want them purchasing gifts for other people. When someone has an ABLE account, they have choices of where they want to either save or invest the money. If they wanted to choose our cash savings option, it's a sort of an FDIC model of a way of savings. I think currently they're receiving about 3% interest, if I'm not mistaken. Looking at my daughter's last statement, I believe that's what it was. But those earnings from that interest are tax-free. They could also choose one of our 4 investment options. These are all portfolios that are managed by Vanguard, created for the Maryland ABLE program. And there's different types of investments depending upon people's savings goals, right? Someone that is going to put money into their ABLE account and turn around and use it throughout the month to pay for their expenses probably is going to be happy with the cash option. Just money's in there, you spend it as you need it. Some people say, you know what, I have a midterm savings goal. I'm trying to save up for a trip, or I'm trying to save up for a car. So they may want to put some of their money in one of the investment options. And some people say, I'm saving for long term, like, even retirement or something like that. So they may even like to try maybe one of the more aggressive options, because that's something that people will tend to do that if they're not going to be accessing those funds for a long period of time, and they're willing to ride out those rise and falls of the stock market, right? So different compositions of those accounts. Don't want to get into the weeds on that, other than to let you know that you have options. We here in Maryland have some really great features for our ABLE accounts. You know, all of us, all 47 programs nationwide have to follow some basic rules, and that is a person can contribute up to $20,000 per calendar year in their ABLE account. That's true for all programs. The exception to that is those who are working. They can qualify for what they call able to work contributions, which gives them the opportunity to be able to contribute more than $20,000 a year. It's based on their income, and I think there's a slide in here that talks about that a little bit more, and I think that would be a helpful thing for folks to know, especially if they're interested in working. But up to $20,000 a year in an ABLE account per calendar year. So some of our features include our prepaid card option, which it is an option. People don't have to get this, but a lot of people like it for the convenience factor. It is not a Visa card, line of credit per se, but it looks like a regular Visa. You can use it wherever Visa and MasterCard are accepted. And what it does is it allows a person to transfer money out of the ABLE account and load it onto this prepaid card. And then you can use it online or in the community to pay for those expenses. All right, it's a really easy way to access that. It's also got some cool features because it keeps track of where all your spending is. It runs a little report, shows you what categories it was. It helps maintain that documentation. Deposits. For those who are interested in having Social Security Administration do direct deposits of benefits into an ABLE account, that is now possible. That's a feature we added about 2 years ago because a lot of people were asking for that. Also, people can do payroll contributions, set up payroll contributions from the account owner into their account, or the person who's serving as ALR also has that opportunity. We have a gifting page, which I love to talk about this feature because it really helps family and friends support a person in their savings goals or whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish. With the gifting page, the account owner or ALR can send a link by text, by messenger, by email to the gifting page for folks who would normally be making gifts or giving gifts to someone. Maybe family and friends around the holidays or special occasions, graduations, things like that. And it's so easy because once they get that link, you just click on it, you enter the amount of money that you'd like to give to that person, identify what source you're sending it from, and when you hit send, it electronically transfers the money into their ABLE account. You don't actually get to see inside of that person's ABLE account, but your gift goes there. It doesn't pass through any other types of bank accounts, so it's not accountable resource when it's in the ABLE account. And here in Maryland, we have, I think it was 8,000, as of yesterday, 8,677 Maryland ABLE account holders. And together, they have been able to save over $141 million together over the last 8 years. We've been open for 8 years. So, which is incredible because these are people who were at one time told, don't work, you can't work, don't even think about it. These are people who are working now. But out of those over 8,000 account holders, 287 of them are actively using their gifting page. And together over the last 8 years have been able to receive over $3 million in gifts. Okay? That is a significant amount of money. And these were people that were gifting to the ABLE account because they wanted to support somebody in one of their goals. Maybe it was to get that car, or maybe it was, you know, for whatever. It could be sometimes it's really for great and fun things, like I made it to the, you know, Special Olympics level competition where I'm traveling to another state or whatever, and I'm trying to get that money together to support that trip. Sometimes it's for not fun things like hospitalizations, lengthy medical bills, things like that. But it's a great way to be able to have someone help support savings goals. We also have automatic savings options that people can enroll in. It's completely optional, but ours is called a weather booster. And it's a way to link your savings to the weather. If there's a 50% or more chance of precipitation in your zip code, it automatically pulls from your linked bank account whatever amount you've identified. I decided to try this last year with my daughter just to teach her a little bit about financial literacy and savings. I started with something really small. I linked $1 every time there's a chance of precipitation. And that's what pulls out of my regular checking account into her ABLE account. And I've been meaning to do this with her, but I wanted to sit down at the end of the year and just take a look at how those little amounts of savings that we put in there really add up over time. It can be more than $1, it can be whatever you want, and people can just participate, but it's a fun way to sort of teach that savings goal. And we also have added mobile apps to be able to manage the ABLE account right from your cell phones. We have one for the ABLE account itself and also for the prepaid card. So excited to add all these new features. A lot of people say to me, well, I already have a special needs trust for my family member because I already know about that asset limit of $2,000. And this is a wise move because there's really two ways to be able to save money and not lose benefits. The original way is the special needs trust, right? So that allows you to be able to put money in now, or sometimes special needs trusts are funded when somebody passes away and they're able to leave their assets. And also ABLE accounts has been the second tool that's been added to that toolkit. The benefit of a special needs trust is that you don't have a limit on how much money you can put into that special needs trust. So if a family, parents pass away and they want to leave behind their assets, chances are those assets will be more than $20,000. So you can't put $20,000 away in an ABLE account if your life insurance policy to your child was $100,000, right? That money would need to go into a trust. The other one is that, with an ABLE account, the other difference is person that has a trust will never be able to have direct access to their funds. It will always be managed by a trustee. With an ABLE account, the person with the disability has the autonomy to manage their own money if they're able to do that. Also, the other difference is that the special needs trust has a little more restrictions on what you can use the money for. You can't use it for rent or housing. You can purchase a home in the name of the trust, but you can't pay rent. So a lot of folks that have a special needs trust fund the ABLE account every year for the amount of rent that they have to pay, and they pay that through the ABLE account. All right, so there's a couple different things. Also, the amount of time it takes to establish both an ABLE account and a special needs trust. And I know because I have both. I started with ABLE, and then years later we went ahead and added that special needs trust that will be funded upon the passing of myself and my husband. Because again, we hope to be able to leave behind assets greater than $20,000. But the difference is the ABLE account took us about 15 minutes to set up. The special needs trust took us several months because it's a lot of planning and a lot of work that the parents have to do, as well as the estate planning attorney that's going to work with you. So therefore, there's also a difference in the amount of investment we have in both of these products. With an ABLE account, it costs $35 a year to maintain the account, and with a special needs trust, you're working with an attorney for several months, so it's going to be significantly more than $35. Right? Okay. All right, so just a couple numbers to remember here when we talk about an ABLE account. Once a person opens their ABLE account, it requires an initial contribution to fund the account. That's $25. That's not a fee. That is just the person's money. You can choose to put more in there if you want, but it's just an initial $25 deposit. Fees, $35 per year, and this is prorated. So those who opened their ABLE account in December of last year, they probably paid like $1.37 for their maintenance fee because they didn't have the ABLE account January through most of December. It's also prorated, so it comes out quarterly, right? Directly out of the ABLE account, $8.75. Okay. If anyone that's interested in a prepaid card, there is an additional fee of $1.25 a month, so that's $15 a year. I particularly liked it because I'm all about simplifying things. I like having that prepaid card. I can just give it to my daughter when she goes out on her community-based instruction trips or her community-day support trips. She's able to take her prepaid card, do bowling, go to the movies, lunch, whatever. I don't have to worry about sending money. It was worth the convenience of $15 a year for me, but you don't have to. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. Again, their contribution limits, we have a $20,000 annual contribution this year. With Able to Work, a person can put up to an additional $15,650 into their Able account if they're working and they're not contributing to another retirement account, or their employer is not contributing to another retirement account. So most people aren't necessarily contributing to a 401 because that would be a countable resource by Social Security. Okay? We are also working on a federal level. We have the Employment Flexibility Act that we are going to be asking our congressmen and women to support, which would enable employers to make contributions directly to an Able account instead of a 401k or a retirement account, because they can't have those, right? Or also, we're also asking them to not have that contribution to Able count as earnings. Okay. All right, we talked about the tax benefit, $2,500 per person per year, so any contributions made to a Maryland Able account, you can use as an income subtraction up to $2,500 of it. If someone's married and filing joint returns, it could be up to $5,000. So this was another really helpful tool for myself and my husband. We were already paying for everything for our daughter anyway, because that's what parents do, right? She was 14 years old, she didn't have a job, she didn't have any benefits, so mom and dad were paying for the summer camps and everything else, braces, orthodontist, all that good stuff. So we decided we would put those contributions into the Able account, turn around and use that money to pay for things that we were paying for anyway, and then we were able to lower our Maryland income, right, for our taxes. Speaking of which, that's coming up real soon, right? Tax time is coming up real soon, so that's, if you have an Able account, make sure you list your contributions on your Maryland tax form, okay? Real quick, let's talk about that $100,000 balance that I talked about. Someone receiving SSI benefits can have their account continue to grow over time. You can put $20,000 in a year in, unless you qualify for Able to Work. You can put a little more. But eventually, if you did do that year after year, you'd hit that balance of $100,000 because you've been contributing money, because it's been earning money on interest or dividends, whatever. What happens at $100,000? If you get $100,000 in your Able account plus $2,000 outside of your Able account, Social Security is going to put a pause or push a pause button on those monthly SSI cash benefits. However, Medicaid and all those waivers remain in place. At any point you were to spend down that balance below $100,000, Social Security could reactivate those benefits because the person was never disenrolled. Someone outside of an Able account can have up to $2,000 in their Able account, in their regular bank accounts, savings, checking, whatever. If they go beyond that asset limit, they will be notified they're over-resourced. They will have a specific amount of time to spend that money down, and if they don't, they do become disenrolled from Social Security. Okay, so this is the big difference with trying to save money and plan for the future outside of Able and within Able. We can let that account balance grow up to $500,000, after which point we can no longer accept contributions. The earnings can have that balance continue to grow, but we wouldn't be able to accept any new contributions at that time. So some people right now are thinking, now wait a minute, Kelly, you just said I can have $100,000 in the Able account before having my SSI in a state of suspension. Why are you talking about $500,000? Well, like Deb was talking about, some folks receive SSDI benefits. They do not have a $2,000 asset limit. So some people that are receiving SSDI, they're like, I'm just going to let that account balance grow beyond $500,000. They still want an Able account because Medicaid oftentimes has asset limits, but money inside of the Able account is not a countable resource for Medicaid. Then we have the other scenario where, say, as Deb was talking about, people always wind up having more money from employment than from benefits. And some people were like, you know what? I decided I don't care if I lose my SSI cash benefit. I'm earning more money working. I love my job. I love what I'm doing. So they would, again, still remain in a state of suspension for their SSI benefits, but that is another option. So we've come to the end of the information about ABLE. This is our contact information here. I'm Kelly Nelson. Down there is my email if you have follow-up questions. But we really recommend that you just check out our website. We've got some great resources available there. The Guide to Maryland ABLE is a user-friendly guide. You can also check out our frequently asked questions section. You can enroll directly from the website. And consider following us on social media. We try to keep our page very active, where we're going to be next in the community. And I thank you all very much for spending some time with me this morning to learn about ABLE.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm going to do a little send off for Harford TV because this is the end of their presentation, and then I'm going to tell you guys what we're doing next, okay? So I just wanted to say we are concluding the presentation portion of our program today. I'd like to thank everybody who came out to see us. I'd like to thank our wonderful presenters, Deb and Kelly. And I'd also like to thank Harford TV for displaying this for those who were not able to make it today. Thank you so much. Good? Okay.